Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a developing situation that has stunned analysts across Europe: the sudden and unexpected setbacks facing Putin's Baltic forces. In this detailed breakdown, we'll explore how this shift unfolded, why it matters, and what it could mean for the future of the Baltic region. The story is complicated, the stakes are high, and the reactions from global powers have already begun shaping the next phase of this geopolitical struggle. This analysis is designed to give you a clear and complete understanding of the unfolding events, all in simple short paragraphs that are easy to follow. The current situation didn't unfold overnight. Tensions have been building for months as Russian activity in the Baltic region grew increasingly bold. Patrols intensified, naval drills expanded, and the scale of military presence slowly crept upward. But despite this buildup, something unexpected occurred: a coordinated pushback by Baltic and NATO, aligned forces that blindsided the Russian side. This wasn't just a minor setback, it was a dramatic shift in momentum that many did not see coming. For the first time in years, Putin's strategy in the region is facing a very real challenge. One major factor in this defeat was the improved intelligence sharing among Baltic states. After years of Russian intimidation and covert attempts to undermine regional stability, these nations dramatically upgraded their surveillance networks. They improved drone monitoring, enhanced signal interception, and used joint data platforms to patch long-standing weaknesses. This allowed them to detect movements earlier, respond faster, and anticipate tactics that previously caught them off guard. This intelligence advantage became a key driver in the recent confrontation. Another crucial element was the rapid response preparedness of Baltic defense forces. In earlier years, these nations struggled to mobilize quickly due to limited resources and outdated systems, but recent investments, partially assisted by NATO allies, transformed their capabilities. When Russia attempted its latest maneuver, expecting a slow reaction, the Baltic forces responded almost instantly. Units deployed in record time, defensive positions were activated seamlessly, and support arrived before Russian commanders could execute the next stage of their plan. The speed and precision of this response shocked Russian analysts. Technology played a major role in the recent events. The Baltic forces introduced new electronic warfare tools that disrupted Russian communication channels. These systems interfered with GPS navigation, scrambled encrypted radio signals, and created tactical confusion among Russian units. For a military that relies heavily on synchronized movement and centralized command, this disruption proved devastating. Russian units were unable to coordinate effectively, resulting in miscommunications and delayed orders that weakened their overall strategy. Another surprising advantage came from the use of autonomous maritime drones. These small but highly effective devices patrolled key areas of the Baltic Sea, gathering real-time data and detecting Russian naval activity long before it could escalate. When Russia attempted to push its fleet further into contested zones, these drones provided immediate alerts that allowed Baltic forces to prepare countermeasures. Their presence neutralized the element of surprise that Russia often uses in maritime operations. A major turning point occurred when a Russian supply line, critical for maintaining forward positions, was intercepted. This wasn't just a tactical loss, it crippled the momentum of the entire operation. Without reliable supplies of fuel, ammunition, and communication equipment, the Russian forces were forced into a defensive posture. The disruption forced them to retreat from several strategic points, giving the Baltic side room to expand their control and strengthen their defenses. Diplomatic pressure further complicated Russia's position. European nations, especially those bordering the Baltic Sea, united in a rare show of solidarity. They issued coordinated warnings, imposed new restrictions, and increased patrols in international waters. This level of unity limited Russia's ability to exploit political divisions, a tactic it often uses to weaken responses. With Europe standing firm, Russia found itself isolated and forced to reconsider its aggressive posture. One of the most critical factors in this defeat was internal miscalculation. Russian leadership underestimated the readiness and resolve of Baltic forces. They expected resistance, but not the kind of organized, technologically advanced, and highly coordinated force they encountered. This miscalculation led to the deployment of units that were not adequately equipped for the evolving situation. As intelligence reports flowed back to Moscow, the extent of the setback became clear. Another element that contributed to Russia's difficulties was the morale of the troops. In recent months, multiple reports have emerged suggesting fatigue, low motivation, and logistical frustrations among Russian units stationed in the Baltic zone. The harsh weather, long rotations, and continuous pressure have taken a toll. When the recent confrontation intensified, these issues became more visible. Soldiers struggled to maintain formation, units reported shortages, and communication breakdowns weighed heavily on their performance. Meanwhile, Baltic forces demonstrated high morale, fueled by increased public support and confidence in their improved defenses. Citizens across Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have been more active in supporting their militaries through volunteer programs, training initiatives, and civil defense networks. This civilian backing created a sense of unity and purpose that strengthened the resolve of the Baltic side. In contrast, Russia's troops lacked a similar support structure. International observers noted that the recent events marked one of the most significant losing moments for Russia in the Baltic region in years. Analysts from multiple think tanks highlighted how this shift could alter the strategic balance of power. For decades, Russia leveraged its military strength to maintain dominance in the Baltic. But this defeat demonstrates that the regional power dynamic is changing. Smaller nations, when equipped with modern tools and backed by alliances, can neutralize even larger military forces. The psychological impact of this defeat is also worth noting. Russia has built much of its regional influence on the perception of overwhelming military superiority. When that perception is challenged, it weakens their ability to intimidate neighboring countries. This new reality empowers Baltic nations and encourages them to take stronger defensive and diplomatic positions. It also signals to other nations that Russia is not invincible in contested areas. Economically, the setback also poses challenges for Russia. Maintaining a large military presence in the Baltic is costly, and recent losses increase that burden. Russia will need additional resources to repair damaged equipment, replace lost supplies, and reinforce units. At a time when the Russian economy is already strained by sanctions and limited revenue, these new expenses further complicate their financial calculations. The international community has reacted cautiously but firmly. NATO has increased surveillance flights, adjusted force deployments, and strengthened communication channels among member states. These steps aim to prevent escalation while ensuring readiness. The organization emphasized that while it seeks stability, it will not tolerate aggression that threatens the sovereignty of member states or partners. The United States also played a behind-the-scenes role in supporting Baltic forces. Intelligence sharing, quick logistical support, and quiet diplomatic pressure helped shape the outcome. While the U.S. did not publicly announce its specific involvement, multiple analysts suggest that advanced satellite observation contributed to early warnings that aided the Baltic response. This level of silent coordination signals a renewed commitment to European security. China, on the other hand, has remained mostly silent on the issue, offering neutral statements that call for stability and restraint. Analysts believe China wants to avoid publicly criticizing Russia, while also avoiding association with a failed operation. Its careful commentary suggests an attempt to maintain balance without jeopardizing its strategic relationships. The response from Russia has been defensive and dismissive. Officials released statements claiming the events were misunderstood, exaggerated, or fabricated by Western media. However, satellite images, independent reports, and eyewitness accounts contradict these claims. The inability of Russia to maintain a consistent narrative has only increased speculation about the severity of the defeat. In Moscow, political tensions are rising. Some reports suggest that key advisors are questioning the strategy used in the Baltic operation. Critics argue that poor planning, overconfidence, and outdated tactics contributed to the humiliation. Others believe the leadership underestimated how united the Baltic states had become. These internal disagreements could lead to shifts in Russian military leadership in the coming months. For the Baltic nations, this moment represents a major strategic victory. It reinforces their belief that resilience, preparation, and cooperation are key to resisting aggression. It also boosts public confidence in their governments and defense policies. Many citizens see this as proof that their investments in national security are paying off, giving them renewed motivation to strengthen their position even further. The recent events could also reshape future military planning across Europe. Countries that once hesitated to increase defense spending may now rethink their priorities. Observers expect new joint military projects, more advanced training initiatives, and expanded cybersecurity programs to emerge in the months ahead. These efforts will likely focus on countering hybrid warfare, maritime threats, and electronic interference areas where Russia has traditionally had an advantage. The defeat also raises questions about Russia's next move. Will Moscow escalate, retreat, or attempt to negotiate? Each option carries significant risks. Escalation could trigger a stronger NATO response. Retreat would signal weakness. Negotiation would require concessions that Russia may be unwilling to make. The coming weeks will reveal which path the Kremlin chooses. Another concern is whether Russia will shift its focus to other regions as a distraction. Historically, when faced with setbacks, Russia often redirects attention to another area to regain momentum. This possibility has caught the attention of security analysts who are monitoring regions such as the Black Sea, the Arctic, and areas near Eastern Europe for signs of unusual activity. Despite the potential for future conflict, there is also hope that this moment could serve as a turning point toward de-escalation. Some experts believe that the setback may push Russia to reconsider the cost of continued aggression. If diplomatic channels reopen, there may be an opportunity to stabilize the region. However, this depends entirely on political will from all sides, which remains uncertain. As we look deeper into the long-term implications, it becomes clear that this defeat is not just a military event, but a strategic awakening. It demonstrates how quickly the balance of power can shift when smaller nations invest in modern defense and cooperate effectively. It also exposes vulnerabilities within Russia's command structure and operational tactics. For years, Russia relied on intimidation and rapid force projection. But the recent outcome proves these strategies are no longer guaranteed to succeed. Public reaction across Europe has been overwhelmingly supportive of the Baltic victory. Social media platforms are filled with messages praising the unity of small nations standing up to a larger power. Analysts note that this surge in public morale could translate into stronger political backing for future defense initiatives. This sense of regional pride is shaping the narrative in a powerful way. Some Russian commentators have expressed concern that the defeat could inspire other nations to challenge Russia's influence in contested regions. If countries see Russia struggling to maintain control in the Baltic, they may feel more confident resisting pressure in other areas. This potential shift poses a strategic dilemma for Moscow, which relies heavily on projecting strength internationally. Environmental factors also played a subtle but influential role. Poor weather conditions, heavy fog, and rough seas disrupted Russian operations more than expected. While both sides faced challenges, the Baltic forces had better local preparedness, giving them an edge. This demonstrates the importance of geographical familiarity, which has always been a strength of local defenders. Logistical challenges further weakened Russia's performance. Their supply lines were stretched thin, Their fuel consumption was higher than anticipated, and some routes were compromised by unexpected countermeasures. Once these weaknesses emerged, the rest of the operation became significantly harder to sustain. This logistical strain is one of the main reasons analysts believe the defeat was inevitable once the initial momentum shifted. Military strategists point out that Russia's heavy reliance on traditional warfare methods, tanks, large troop formations, centralized command, may have contributed to the failure. Modern conflict, especially in regions like the Baltic Sea, requires more flexible and adaptive tactics. In contrast, the Baltic forces used decentralized units, mobile teams, and agile decision-making that outpaced the slower Russian approach. Cyber operations also played an important but less publicized role. The Baltic side reportedly launched several counter-cyber measures that targeted Russian coordination systems. While the full details are not public, experts believe these cyber disruptions made it harder for Russian commanders to access real-time data. In modern conflict, losing digital visibility can be as damaging as losing physical ground. The defeat has already sparked discussions within NATO about expanding digital defense cooperation. These discussions include plans for shared cyber defense centers, AI-assisted threat detection, and integrated digital command networks. If implemented, these upgrades could give NATO a decisive advantage in future engagements. Economists warn that the defeat could affect Russian trade routes in the Baltic Sea. Disrupted access, increased surveillance, and strengthened maritime security could complicate Russia's shipping operations. This adds another layer of pressure as Russia navigates an already weakened economic landscape. While the situation remains tense, many believe this moment could reshape the Baltic region for years to come. It underscores the power of unity, preparation, and technological advancement. It also sends a clear message that aggression will not go unanswered, especially when nations stand together with a shared purpose. In conclusion, the stunning defeat of Putin's Baltic forces represents a turning point in the regional balance of power. It highlights the rise of a more coordinated and resilient Baltic defense network, exposes critical weaknesses in Russia's military strategy, and sets the stage for a new chapter in European security. Whether this leads to further escalation, diplomatic engagement, or long-term stability remains to be seen. But what's certain is that the ripple effects of this event will be felt across Europe, Russia, and beyond for a long time.